Welcome back to my channel. Today we're diving into the courtroom storm that no one, not even TLC, saw coming. Kody Brown, the man who once swore he'd protect Robyn at all costs, has finally done the unthinkable. He's turned against her. And in this moment, every buried secret, every lie, and every manipulated tear has been dragged into the light. The rain hadn't stopped all morning. It fell softly over the Flagstaff courthouse, washing against the windows like it was trying to cleanse the years of sin trapped inside. Inside courtroom 4B, you could feel the air tighten, thick with tension, betrayal, and the ghosts of broken promises. Reporters whispered. Cameras rolled. And for once, Robyn Brown didn't look like the victim. She sat frozen, pale, trembling, her hands twisting in her lap. The mascara was new, but the fear was real. Across the room, Christine Brown sat still, her lawyer beside her, face unreadable. She hadn't blinked once. She wasn't looking at Kody. She wasn't looking at Robyn. She was waiting. For truth, for closure, for justice. Then the doors opened. Kody Brown walked in. No wedding ring? No smile, no charm. Just a man who finally looked haunted by his own reflection. His hair was tied back tight, his jaw locked, and for the first time in years, the room didn't revolve around him. This hearing is now in session, the judge declared, his voice echoing through the silence. Case 42B, Brown versus Brown, regarding defamation, emotional harm, and proposed restrictions of contact. Not a divorce hearing. Something worse, the trial of truth itself. Christine's lawyer stood, her tone calm but deadly. Your Honor, she began, this is not just a story of a marriage gone wrong. This is a case of emotional harm, of faith twisted into control, and of psychological manipulation carried out under the bright lights of reality television. Her eyes landed on Robyn. The defendant weaponized faith, isolated our client from her children, her finances, and her own voice. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Robyn didn't flinch, not yet. But Kody did. His jaw twitched, his fists clenched, his silence louder than any confession. Then came the words that changed everything. Mr. Brown is not the accused in this case. He is a witness to the fallout of his own silence. The judge nodded. Mr. Brown, approach. Kody rose, slow, heavy, shame clinging to every step. Do you swear to tell the truth? I do, he swallowed hard. I thought Christine left because she couldn't handle plural marriage, he said, voice trembling. I thought she was jealous, that Robyn was just the easy target. He turned, and eyes locked on Robyn. I was wrong. Gasps filled the courtroom. Christine didn't leave the family, Kody said, voice cracking. She left the pain. And that pain came from us, from me, and from you. The air went still. Even the cameras seemed to stop breathing. Robyn shook her head in disbelief, whispering, No. You manipulated our children, Kody continued, louder now. You made them believe their own mother was dangerous. You poisoned them against her. Christine's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't move. She'd waited years for these words. You told me she was broken, Kody said, that she was rebellious. And I believed you. I let you turn me against my own wife. He took a long, shaking breath. I used love like a weapon. I let you dictate who deserved it. I gave you control, and you used it to destroy her. The lawyer handed a folder to the judge. Exhibit 5. Text messages from Robyn Brown to Kody, discouraging him from seeing Christine's children, warning of spiritual consequences if he disobeyed. The judge's eyes darkened. Cameras zoomed in. Robyn's hand flew to her mouth. This wasn't just family drama anymore. It was evidence. Christine stood when the judge invited her to speak. Her voice was steady but raw. I didn't leave because I stopped loving him, she said. I left because he stopped loving me. She looked at Kody, then straight at Robyn. I told him I was being isolated, that my kids were scared, that every decision I made was overruled. And when I asked for help, I was told I was dramatic. The room fell silent. But what do you call it? Christine said softly. When someone uses your faith to keep you quiet. When someone tells your daughter she's cursed for walking away. When someone records your breakdown and calls it proof you're unstable. Robyn blinked hard, but the tears didn't fall. I was never the problem, Christine said. I was just the first one brave enough to leave. The judge ordered a recess. The courtroom buzzed like static. Robyn turned to Kody. How could you do this to me? She hissed. He didn't answer. He just walked away. No glance, no apology, no goodbye. When they returned, the air was different. Thicker. Colder. Christine's lawyer stood again. "Your Honor," she said, Exhibit 9B. A gold flash drive was placed before the court. The recordings. Robyn's face drained of color. She knew what was coming. "Sometimes," the lawyer said, "the truth doesn't hide in statements or signatures. It hides in whispers." The speakers crackled. Christine's voice echoed through the room. Tired, trembling, desperate. "Robyn, I'm trying. I don't know how else to fix this." Then came the voice that made the gallery gasp. Cold, sharp, authoritative. Robyn's voice. "Trying isn't enough, Christine. You embarrass this family? You embarrass our faith." The courtroom froze. And just like that, everything the world thought they knew about the SisterWives shattered. Today's courtroom wasn't just about legal arguments or cold evidence. It was about revelation. It was about the masks people wear and the voices they hide behind. And for the first time, the world heard the real Robyn Brown. The first recording began softly. But what came through those speakers wasn't the fragile, trembling voice the world had come to associate with her. This wasn't the soft-spoken woman who cried on camera about unity and sisterhood. No, this voice was sharp, deliberate, venom dressed as virtue. "You want to leave and abandon your covenants? Fine, but don't you dare take the kids with you," the voice hissed. "They need discipline. They need obedience and not your selfish emotions." Christine's voice cracked in the recording, trembling as she replied, "They're afraid, Robyn. They cry to me at night." Then, silence, until that cold voice returned, quieter this time. "They cry because they know you're weak." The entire courtroom froze. Robyn pressed both hands against her mouth, shaking her head, mouthing, "That's not me." But the audio didn't wait for permission. The truth never does. Kody's jaw tightened, eyes shut, the kind of tension that comes when a man finally realizes the storm he's been living in. The recording continued. Robyn's tone turned controlled, methodical. "You leaving would shame us. Don't make Kody choose. You can't win that battle." Christine's voice broke again. "I don't want a battle." "Yes, you do," Robyn sneered. "Because you want his attention. You always have. But he chose me. He always will." The audio clicked off. And the silence that followed was suffocating, deeper than prayer, heavier than grief. Even the cameras in the courtroom seemed to pause. Because this wasn't reality TV anymore. This was reality, raw and unfiltered. The judge leaned forward. "Is there more?" "There are 4 recordings, Your Honor," Christine's attorney replied calmly. Robyn's lawyer shot up from his seat. "Objection, admissibility." But the judge only raised a hand. "We will hear them. Continue." The second clip began. This one started mid-argument, both voices sharp and desperate. "Christine, please stop telling them God will punish them for loving me." Robyn's voice cracked, fury spilling out. "You should fear God," she shouted. "You should be terrified he sees your rebellion. Your children should be scared because you are leading them into darkness." A gasp rippled through the courtroom. One reporter dropped his pen. Another whispered, "Oh my God, Christine, they're children." Robyn snapped back, "Then act like a mother instead of a quitter." Something slammed. Maybe a door, maybe a chair, maybe just the weight of every mother's heart breaking in that room. Christine sat silent. Tears streamed down her face, but they weren't the tears of weakness. They were the tears of someone who had survived emotional warfare and was finally watching her truth see daylight. Robyn's hands shook violently. Her breath came fast, uneven. "It was a bad day," she whispered. "I was overwhelmed. It's not who I am." But no one looked convinced. Not the judge, not the reporters, not Kody, who stared blankly at the table, his knuckles trembling. The third clip began, static, then deep breathing. Christine's voice pleading, "Please don't tell the kids Kody won't love them if I leave." Robyn's voice slid in like a whisper wrapped in ice. "Sometimes fear is the only thing that keeps children on the right path." Christine's voice cracked. "Fear isn't faith." Robyn shot back coldly. "Faith without fear is foolishness." "You poisoned his spirit," Robyn accused. "No," Christine's voice trembled. "You did." Then Robyn's final blow, chilling, absolute. "I will not lose him. And if you walk away, he walks away from you. That's how God works." The clip ended. A woman in the gallery wiped tears from her face. A man muttered under his breath, "This is abuse." Even the longtime defenders of Robyn Brown, the ones who swore she was misunderstood, sat in stunned silence. Because the villain had spoken and the mask was gone. Then came the final recording. It began quiet, too quiet. "Christine, I feel like I'm disappearing," came Christine's fragile voice. Robyn's reply was ice cold, then disappeared quietly. There was a long pause. "I don't owe you kindness," Robyn said finally. "I owe this family stability. You are chaos, and Kody sees that now." Christine whispered, "You've changed him." Robyn's voice cut through the room like a blade. "No, Christine. I revealed him." Those 4 words hung in the courtroom like a ghost that refused to leave. Christine's face crumpled, not from weakness but from the pain of recognition. Pain that runs deep enough to carve scars no one can see. Robyn sat frozen, her tears finally falling, black trails of mascara streaking her cheeks. But these weren't the same tears she'd always shown the cameras. These were different. They weren't for sympathy, they were for fear. Because this time the mask hadn't just cracked. It had shattered. Kody finally raised his head, eyes glassy, voice breaking. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I didn't hear that side of her. I didn't want to see." Christine looked at him, truly looked, and in that moment he flinched. Because what he saw in her gaze wasn't anger. It wasn't triumph. It was disappointment. The judge exhaled. "Mrs. Brown," he said evenly, "do you wish to respond to these recordings?" Robyn shot up, her chair scraping violently against the floor. "Those clips, you don't understand. I was trying to protect the family. She was destroying everything." The judge's voice cut through her hysteria. "Mrs. Brown, control yourself. She made him miserable." Robyn cried. "She made all of us miserable. She abandoned her commitments, her duties, her faith." But by then, no one was listening. Because the courtroom had already decided what it believed. And for the first time in years, the truth didn't belong to Robyn Brown. It belonged to the silence that followed her words. It belonged to the silence that followed her words. The moment Robyn opened her mouth, the courtroom shifted. Her voice cracked, not from sorrow, but from fury. The soft-spoken mask she'd worn for years slipped, revealing the rage underneath. Christine's attorney didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He simply leaned forward, tone calm, almost surgical. "Tell me, Mrs. Brown," he said. "Where in Scripture does it say that mothers must be terrified to raise their children? Where does it say that humiliation builds unity?" Robyn's composure snapped. "Don't twist Scripture," she shouted, her voice echoing across the marble walls. "You don't know what God demands." And then Christine spoke. Her voice was soft, almost tender, but each word cut through the tension like glass. "God would never ask me to fear you." Robyn flinched like she'd been struck. Her eyes darted across the room, searching for someone, anyone, to save her. "You don't understand," she stammered. "You don't understand." Her breathing quickened, shallow and uneven. Panic rolled through her chest like waves crashing against rock. For the first time in years, she wasn't in control. There was no TLC confessional couch to cry to, no producer cueing sympathetic music. There was no edit to make her pain look pure and her cruelty look justified. This was real. This was raw. And this was devastating. Because when someone's power is built on secrecy, the truth doesn't just expose them, it burns them alive. Her lawyer rushed forward, hand on her shoulder. "Your Honor," he began quickly. "My client was under emotional strain. These were private marital discussions." But Christine's lawyer cut in, voice sharp. "These were not private," he said firmly. "These were threats, acts of spiritual coercion and emotional intimidation. And they weren't directed toward her spouse. They were directed at another woman and her children." Robyn's attorney opened his mouth to argue, but the judge raised a hand. "Enough," he said firmly. "We will recess for early lunch. When we return, we'll hear testimony from the witnesses requested by the plaintiff." He turned directly to Robyn. "And Mrs. Brown, you will not interrupt them." The gavel came down like thunder. Robyn slumped into her chair, her face pale, trembling. The room fell quiet except for the faint shuffle of papers and the sound of her uneven breathing. Kody stood slowly, eyes locked on her. Not with anger, but disbelief. He stared at Robyn like he was seeing a stranger for the very first time. "You told me she was unstable," he said quietly. Robyn looked up, desperate. "Kody, please." But Kody's voice cracked, heavy with realization. "It wasn't her, was it?" he whispered. "It was you." Christine's breath caught in her chest. Not from triumph. Not from revenge. But from something far more painful, confirmation. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't alone. She had been right, and no one had believed her. Not even him. Kody took a step back, the distance between them heavy with years of deception. "I don't know who you are anymore," he said softly. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. Robyn sat frozen, panic widening her eyes as the man she'd manipulated for a decade disappeared through the courtroom doors. Christine rose quietly. She didn't look at Robyn, didn't gloat, didn't smile. She simply stood, tall, steady, and free. This wasn't the victory of a woman who'd won a case. It was the quiet liberation of a woman who had survived years of emotional captivity. As she walked toward the door, the gallery parted like a wave before her. Reporters, spectators, even the judge watched in silence. Because what they were witnessing wasn't just a mother leaving a courtroom. It was a woman reclaiming her soul. The truth hadn't set her free. She had freed herself long before the truth caught up. Outside, the rain had stopped. The clouds cracked open, and sunlight slipped through the glass, spilling warmth across the courthouse steps, like a final blessing. Inside, Robyn sat shaking. No longer the favored wife. No longer shielded by Kody's loyalty. No longer the untouchable symbol of spiritual superiority. And as the doors closed behind Christine, one truth hung heavy in the air. This wasn't just a family fracture. It was the end of an illusion. But the story wasn't over. Because when the courtroom reconvened, another voice would rise. One that had been silent for too long. The side door creaked open. Heads turned. The air seemed to still. And there she was, Janelle Brown. She stood in the doorway dressed in slate gray. No makeup, no tears, no performance, just truth. She walked forward with measured steps, holding a folder in one hand and something even stronger in the other. Resolve. The judge looked up. "Ms. Brown, are you here to provide testimony?" "Yes, Your Honor," Janelle replied steadily. "I wasn't subpoenaed, but I submitted a statement. And after what I just heard, I'd like to testify under oath." Christine blinked in disbelief. Robyn's face twisted in horror. And Kody? Kody just stared at her, breathing unevenly, like a man staring into a mirror that finally reflected what he didn't want to see. Because in a family built on silence, the loudest betrayal isn't the one shouted. It's the truth finally spoken aloud. The judge nodded. "Very well. Bailiff, please swear in Ms. Brown." Janelle raised her right hand. "I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth." She stepped into the witness stand, laying her folder across her lap. Christine's attorney approached. "Ms. Brown," he began, "please tell the court your relationship to the parties involved." Janelle's tone was unwavering. "I was Kody Brown's second wife, spiritually, not legally. I joined the family in 1993. I remained until early 2023. I co-parented with Christine for nearly 3 decades. And what prompted you to submit a statement in this case?" Janelle hesitated only briefly, her eyes flicking toward Kody, then to Robyn. "Because I can't live with myself knowing I stayed quiet while Christine was pushed to the edge of her sanity." And we all just watched it happen. The courtroom fell utterly silent. Christine's throat moved in a single painful swallow. Robyn whispered a faint, trembling, "No," but Janelle didn't stop. Her voice grew stronger. "And because I watched Robyn manipulate this family from the inside out. And I won't let her do it again." Then she opened the folder, and what came next would change everything. When Janelle took the stand, the air in that courtroom shifted. It wasn't just testimony anymore, it was revelation. She adjusted her glasses, fingers brushing over the folder in her lap like it carried the weight of her conscience. "I kept a journal," she began softly, voice steady but eyes glassy with memory. "I didn't write every day, but I wrote enough to map the shift." Christine's lawyer leaned forward. "Miss Brown, can you explain what you mean by the shift?" Janelle nodded, pausing for a moment. "It started slowly," she said. "Back in 2012, that's when Robyn started changing the family schedule." A murmur swept through the room. "The family schedule?" the attorney repeated. "Yes," Janelle continued. "Kody used to rotate houses evenly. We had balance, routine, fairness. But Robyn began asking for more time. At first, we understood. It was during her pregnancies. We supported her. But then came the excuses. Emotional fatigue. Spiritual burnout. Then she said the children were too attached to Kody, and he needed to stay longer." Her tone hardened. By 2015, Kody was spending 80% of his nights at Robyn's house. Christine closed her eyes. Everyone in the room already knew this, but no one had ever dared say it out loud, under oath, in front of a judge. "And how did this affect Christine?" the lawyer asked quietly. Janelle's answer came after a long, pained breath. "She started shrinking," she said. "That's the only way I can describe it." Her voice got smaller. Her presence in family meetings faded. She stopped looking people in the eye. Every time she tried to raise a concern, Kody would defend Robyn. "It's not always bruises you can see. Sometimes emotional abuse looks like watching someone's light fade, one piece at a time." You could feel the silence grow thick. Even the reporters stopped scribbling notes. "And Robyn?" the attorney pressed. "Robyn wasn't passive," Janelle said flatly. She'd quietly insert herself into Christine's parenting, correct her in front of her own children, tell Kody that Christine was too harsh. And when Christine pushed back, she paused. Robyn would cry. And suddenly, Christine became the villain. The lawyer stepped closer. "Do you believe Robyn orchestrated this?" Janelle didn't blink. "Yes, it was calculated. And she used faith as her weapon." The judge leaned forward. "Explain, Ms. Brown." "She twisted scripture," Janelle said firmly. "Used verses about obedience and submission as tools for control. She would frame Christine's independence as rebellion. She'd say things like, 'Christine's teaching the kids to challenge authority,' or 'God isn't pleased with her tone.' And Kody, he absorbed every word." "Did you ever confront her?" the lawyer asked. "Twice," Janelle said. "Once in 2018, when Robyn told Kody that Christine's girls were out of control and should stay with her for a weekend. I told Robyn it wasn't her place." "And how did she respond?" Janelle's mouth twitched, a humorless smile. She smiled back at me and said, "I'm just trying to be their second mom. If Christine can't lead them spiritually, someone has to." A gasp rippled through the gallery. Robyn shook her head violently. "That's not true. That's not me." The judge's voice cracked through the chaos. "Mrs. Brown, you are out of order." Robyn fell silent, trembling. Christine's lawyer leaned toward Janelle. "Did you document these interactions?" "Yes," Janelle said, reaching into her folder. She pulled out 2 typed pages. "These are verbatim from my journal, typed the week after it happened." The judge accepted them. Robyn's lawyer objected. "Overruled," the judge said without hesitation. "And the second confrontation?" Janelle's voice finally cracked. "It was the day Christine called me crying. Robyn had told her daughter that leaving the family would mean losing God's protection, that she was risking her soul." Christine gasped audibly, her hand flying to her mouth. "That," Janelle said, her voice trembling but strong, "was the moment I knew this wasn't family tension. It was spiritual abuse." She turned, locking eyes with Robyn. "You used God to scare her kids. You used fear to silence Christine. And you used Kody's pride to destroy what little balance we had left." Kody's head dropped into his hands. His shoulders shook, not with rage, but with regret. Sometimes the most powerful testimony isn't loud. It's the quiet truth from someone who finally decides to stop enabling. Christine's lawyer spoke again. "Ms. Brown, in your opinion, is Christine's current emotional state the result of Robyn's manipulation?" "Yes," Janelle said without hesitation. "Christine didn't just suffer a broken marriage. She suffered character assassination, a death by 1,000 spiritual cuts." The courtroom was silent. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning. The judge reviewed the pages, flipping through Janelle's journal entries, then looked up. "This court recognizes Ms. Brown's journal as admissible under the contemporaneous notes rule. It will be considered part of the emotional abuse timeline." Robyn suddenly snapped. "This is a conspiracy," she screamed. "You're all jealous. You've always hated me. You blame me for everything." "Order!" the judge roared. "Mrs. Brown, sit down or you will be removed." Robyn collapsed into her chair, sobbing into her sleeve. "I tried to help her," she muttered. "I was trying to save the family." Kody stood slowly, his voice soft but cutting. "No, Robyn," he said. "You weren't trying to save it. You were trying to own it." Robyn stared up at him, broken. "You asked me to choose," she whispered. "And I did," Kody said. "I chose peace. I chose silence. And look what it did." He turned to Janelle. "I should have listened to you. Regret doesn't erase the damage. But sometimes admitting you were wrong is the only way to begin healing." Janelle stood. "I'm not here for revenge," she said. "I'm here so the kids know that we did see it. Eventually." The judge cleared his throat. The judge cleared his throat. "This testimony changes the framework of the case. We now have direct evidence, a corroborating witness, and a pattern of coercive behavior. Mrs. Brown, he said, looking at Robyn, prepare a full response before the end of this hearing, or we will rule on restricted contact. Robyn broke down, her lawyer whispering in frantic bursts, but it was no use. The damage wasn't from her enemies, it was from her own words finally echoing back. As court adjourned, Christine rose and walked toward Janelle. They met halfway, embracing, not as old rivals, not as co-wives, but as survivors. Women who had weathered the same storm and somehow found their way to sunlight. Kody watched, his eyes brimming with tears. For the first time, he didn't look angry or righteous. He looked small. Because in the courtroom of truth, the survivors aren't the ones who shout the loudest. They're the ones who refuse to disappear. The room began to empty. The murmur of footsteps filled the space. But then, a voice rose from the back. Your Honor. Everyone turned. A young man stood there, tall, composed, his jaw tight with purpose. Christine gasped. Kody froze. It was Garrison. The judge adjusted his glasses. State your name for the record. Robert Garrison Brown. Christine's breath caught. Janelle's hands trembled in her lap. Kody's throat tightened audibly. Robyn's tears stopped midstream. And your relation to the parties involved? The judge asked. Garrison stood straighter. I'm one of Kody Brown's children, he said. And I'm one of Christine's children in every way that matters. The words hit the room like thunder. I asked to speak today, Garrison continued, voice steady, because I can't keep watching this like it's a show where no one knows the truth. We lived it. We felt every moment. The judge nodded gently. You may continue. Garrison took a deep breath, his voice filled with quiet fire. When Mom left, he said, everyone talked like she abandoned us. But she didn't abandon anyone. She was the only one brave enough to walk away from the lie. And just like that, the courtroom fell silent again. Because this time, the truth wasn't coming from a wife. It was coming from a son. Today, we witnessed the moment that changed everything. Not just for the Browns, but for every silent voice that ever sat behind closed doors and pretended things were fine. This isn't a story about marriage anymore. It's about survival. About truth finally speaking louder than fear. The air inside that courtroom felt different. Heavier. Like everyone could sense that this wasn't going to be another round of tears and denials. This was the reckoning. Garrison's testimony. Christine's hands trembled as her son Garrison took the stand. His posture was upright, his jaw tight, his eyes a storm of strength and sorrow. When he spoke, his voice carried decades of unspoken truth. She saved us. The words were simple, but they detonated like thunder. The gallery gasped. Kody's face hardened, but he didn't look away. Because deep down he knew this was coming. Sometimes the loudest lie, Garrison said, is silence, and the only way to break it is for the ones who were hurt to finally speak. He turned toward his father. You used to tell us we were your purpose, that God gave you this family to lead. But somewhere along the line, you stopped leading. And you started choosing. Kody's mouth twitched. Emotion and pride collided in his chest like fire and steel. You chose her, Garrison continued, nodding toward Robyn. Again and again and again. And the rest of us, we became background characters to her spotlight. A low murmur rippled through the courtroom. Robyn's hand flew to her mouth. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, Garrison snapped, his voice cutting like broken glass. I understand what fear looks like in a child's eyes. What favoritism feels like. I understand what it means when one wife becomes the only wife. The judge raised a hand. Mrs. Brown, you will remain silent during this testimony. Robyn sank back, trembling. Garrison reached into his pocket, pulling out a folded, worn letter, the creases soft from years of being opened and refolded. This, he said, is a letter written by 3 of us, me, Isabel, and Gwen, the night before Mom left. Christine froze. Her breath hitched. The moment hung like a ghost between them. Garrison unfolded the paper, the ink slightly smudged, the edges marked by tears and fingerprints. His voice cracked just slightly as he began to read, Dear Mom, if you go, we go with you. We know Dad won't choose us over her. We know he hasn't in a long time. We know he won't look at us the same again. But we still love him. We just don't want to lose you, too. Christine gasped softly, a sound halfway between memory and release. The gallery sat motionless. Even the judge seemed to swallow hard. We're not scared to leave, Garrison continued. We're scared to stay. We hear the things Robyn says. When she tells Dad you're pulling us toward darkness. when she says God will punish us if we follow you. I never said that. Robyn burst out, but the judge's gavel cut her off sharply. Control, Mrs. Brown. Garrison didn't flinch. We tried to tell you, Dad, he said. You told us we were misunderstanding. But you were the one who misunderstood us. A single tear fell from Kody's cheek. We don't hate Robyn, Garrison read softly. We never did. But we feared her, because she used faith like a leash and guilted us for loving you, Mom. You didn't abandon us. You rescued us. Survival isn't selfish. It's the bravest form of love a mother can give. Christine's hand flew to her mouth. Her shoulders trembled, not from weakness, but from the release of years of silence. We forgave you long before you even left, the letter ended. Because we saw who broke you. Garrison folded the paper slowly. That's why I'm here, he said. Because being a man means owning the truth, even when it hurts. He turned to Kody. You were a good father, once. Maybe love blinded you. Maybe pride did. But we didn't stop needing you just because you got busy proving you didn't need us. The courtroom froze. Cameras clicked. Every lens captured Kody's trembling chin, the tears that refused to hide. The collapse of a man who could no longer outrun his own reflection. Mom left to save us, Garrison finished. And I'll be damned if anyone calls her selfish for that. The judge's voice was low, reverent. Thank you. The letter will be entered into evidence. Robyn's response, the judge turned. Mrs. Brown, would you like to respond? Robyn stood unsteady. I tried to hold the family together, she stammered. I tried to follow the faith. I thought Christine was leading people away. I thought I was saving... Her voice cracked. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I was scared. Scared to lose everything we built. The judge nodded solemnly. Fear can explain behavior. It cannot excuse harm. Robyn collapsed back into her chair, sobbing. Not the dramatic, camera-ready sobs of seasons past, but the raw, human kind. The tears of someone who finally realized the cost of her control. Mary's arrival. Then came the moment no one expected. The bailiff approached the bench and whispered something to the judge. His brows lifted. We have received a sealed statement from a minor child, he said. With counsel's consent, I will read an excerpt. He unfolded the paper. Please don't make us go back to that environment. I like peace. I like when Mom smiles. I don't want to live where love feels conditional and God feels like punishment. The room fell completely silent. Someone in the gallery sobbed, the kind of sound that makes even strangers cry. Janelle covered her mouth. Christine's tears flowed freely. The judge exhaled slowly. This testimony meets the threshold for protective consideration. And then the twist that froze every heart in the room. Before ruling, the judge said, this court calls one final witness, Mary Brown. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Mary, the forgotten first wife. The original cornerstone. Her heels echoed against the marble floor, slow, steady, deliberate, like a metronome counting down the end of an era. She took the stand, her face pale but calm, her eyes filled with both grief and resolve. Do you swear to tell the truth? The bailiff asked. Mary's voice was steady. I do. She folded her hands, looking directly at Kody. I was the first wife, she began. The one who started this journey. I believed in it, in the principle, in the unity. And for a while, it felt right. She paused, glancing toward Christine. When she joined, I was jealous, insecure, I wasn't kind. I own that. But we found our rhythm, real, imperfect, human. And then Robyn came, and that rhythm died. The courtroom was utterly still. Sometimes, Mary said quietly, the hardest confession isn't admitting someone hurt you. It's admitting you helped them do it. The judge's pen froze midair. I watched Christine be erased, Mary continued. Every time she questioned something, she was called rebellious. Every time she cried, it was called manipulation. And every time she stood her ground, Robyn was already there, taking that ground for herself. She turned to Kody. You thought Robyn was your redemption, your reward. But she became your blindfold. Kody lowered his head. Why didn't you come forward sooner? The judge asked. Because I was afraid, Mary replied softly. Afraid to lose what little I had left. But there's nothing left to lose when your worth has already been forgotten. Her words hung like holy scripture. I don't want revenge. I want freedom. For Christine. For the kids. For every woman who was told to stay quiet in the name of faith. The verdict, the judge nodded, visibly moved. This court will recess for deliberation. 10 minutes later, he returned, eyes weary, voice steady. What we've witnessed today is not a criminal act. but it is a pattern of spiritual coercion and emotional harm. He looked directly at Christine. Your request for protective boundaries has been granted. Mrs. Robyn Brown is hereby prohibited from contact with your minor children, physical, digital, or through intermediaries. Christine closed her eyes. A single tear fell, not of pain but of relief. The judge continued. Furthermore, this court advises Mr. Kody Brown to pursue family therapy and supervised reunification. Selective love is not love. It is abandonment in disguise. Kody's head fell into his hands. Then the final blow. Mrs. Robyn Brown, the judge said, though no criminal penalty applies today, your conduct, as testified and recorded, is found to be spiritually abusive and psychologically harmful. You are ordered to complete mandatory counseling before contact with any of the Brown children may resume. The gavel struck. One sound, but it echoed like the closing of a chapter that had been open far too long. Christine didn't celebrate. She didn't even smile. Because this wasn't victory, it was release. Kody rose slowly, looking like a man aged by truth. He approached Christine, voice trembling. I'm sorry, he said. Christine met his gaze. I believe you, she replied softly. But it doesn't change what happened. And then she turned, quietly, peacefully, and walked away. The aftermath. As the courtroom emptied, Robyn sat alone. No cameras, no comforting hands, no Kody beside her. Just silence. Her tears fell onto the floor, unheard, unseen, maybe for the first time, real. Christine stepped into the sunlight outside, her children by her side. The reporters shouted, the cameras flashed, but for once, none of it mattered. Because freedom isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just the sound of your own footsteps walking away, unchained. Besties, now it's your turn. Do you think Robyn ever truly loved the family? Or was it always about control, about fear disguised as faith? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading every single one. And if this courtroom finale hit hard, don't forget to subscribe. Because this story may have ended, but finale hit hard, don't forget to subscribe. Because this story may have ended, but